So I think every wrestling content person has made a video about this show. And I'm not too proud to admit that now is my time. But before making this video, I'd actually never seen this show. I'd seen snippets of it, I'd heard the stories, but I'd never sat down and watched it in its entirety, which is surprising because it is commonly considered to be the single worst wrestling show of all time ever in the world ever of all time. I'm Jack the Jobber, this is Very Weird Wrestling, and today's episode is Heroes of Wrestling, or HOW for short, as in, how was this even allowed to exist? Now, the backstory of Heroes of Wrestling as a show, as a concept, is kind of straightforwardly an obvious disaster. Like, as I delve into this, please try to remember that this was an actual real-life idea that people actually thought would work. Basically what happened was, in 1999, at the very height, in the very thick of the Attitude Era, this guy named Bill Stone thinks, hey, wrestling's kind of popping again, isn't it, guys? I should put on a wrestling show myself. Now, the more unimaginative of you out there might be thinking, well, that's all well and good, Bill, but the biggest names in the industry at the time, Austin, The Rock, Goldberg, the NWO, they're all in one of the two major companies, either in the WWF or WCW in 1999. That's kind of the whole reason wrestling got popular again, the Monday Night Wars. But our guy Bill, don't you worry about him. He's got this under control. So Bill decides to put on a nostalgia-themed show featuring the names from when wrestling was last hot, like 10 years prior. And apparently he also wanted this to be a series of events rather than just the one that ended up happening. I guess because it was so bad, everybody decided let's never do that ever again. Bit of a problem here, Bill. Two key mistakes that I've identified. Two key flaws in your strategy, my friend. Problem number one. Okay, nostalgia-based show. That's all well and good if those names are available from, hey, yesterday. But they're all still kind of in WCW, like Hogan, Savage, etc. Even Bret Hart's in WCW. What are you doing there, Bret? And despite clearly losing the Monday Night Wars at this point, WCW are still signing these big names of the past to insane, like ridiculously huge contracts. And lots of money means lots and lots of happy wrestlers. So those big names in WCW, they're going to be pretty chill where they are. But that's not the only problem with Bill's idea. Problem number two. Bill, have you ever actually watched wrestling in the late 90s? Weapons, car crash TV, swerves bro, absolute carnage, EC dub. The business has changed massively since the last boom period. I mean, the world has changed massively since then. It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. It's quite late as I'm recording this. I'm so sorry. That's me apologising to my neighbour, not the Lord. It's okay, Jack. Keep making the wrestling content. So even if Bill is able to sign all of those names from the past, the available ones that he wants, even if he manages to, Heroes of Wrestling, a nostalgia-themed show as a concept in 1999, probably isn't going to work. And also, he doesn't manage to sign very many of those names either. Sid is approached, but he signs for WCW instead, and he would go on to suffer a horrific injury in WCW, which I will not be showing on screen. But despite that horrible incident, I think it's genuinely a better outcome than Sid having his name attached to this event. Is that okay? Is that okay to say? No, I genuinely believe it, to be fair. Other names wisely turn this down too. Terry Funk, Vader, Honky Tonk Man. Nick Bockwinkel is advertised, but isn't actually on the show, and I couldn't find out why. If you know more, let me know down there, please. On the comment section. Drop a like as well if you want. Thank you. Wait, Nick Bockwinkel? Far be it from me to doubt the greatness of big old Nicky B. One of the GOATs, of course. One of the greatest of all time. But he seems to stand out quite a bit for me there, compared to the other names who were, they'd been in the WWF or in WCW. Nick Bockwinkel was billed like a huge AWA mark or something. Or perhaps more likely, did an industry type get in his ear and say, who's a big draw in 1999, Bill? Nicky B. I think the latter possibility there is probably the most likely one, because there are definitely carny wrestly types associated with this show as well. Dutch Mantell does colour commentary, Tully Blanchard is on the show too, Greg Valentine of course, and perhaps most infamously of all, Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, Jake's appearance in the final match of this show is probably the most notorious part of Heroes of Wrestling. I will be covering it, of course, I will, but I just find it kind of sad, you know? And if later on it comes across like I'm mocking his performance, I would like to stress that I'm mocking the whole situation and the absurdity of it and how it was allowed to get that far, rather than mocking Jake the Snake Roberts himself as a person who, of course, was going through some huge struggles at this time. Jake has battled demons throughout his life, and those demons really get the better of him on this occasion. And that is his fault, of course. I'm not absolving him of any blame. But I would like to stress once again, I think that it's a shared blame. The whole situation is absurd. How was he allowed to get in the ring in such an intoxicated state in the first place? But that's all the disclaimer for later on. The overall message I have, I suppose, here is I don't really have any sympathy for the people who put together Heroes of Wrestling. You might think, oh, it's quite natural to, yes, let's laugh at a all-time disastrous wrestling show, but you've got to feel sorry for the people involved, right? I struggle to feel sorry for them. And the reason I find it hard to feel any sympathy for the organisers is that they clearly had such little respect or care for a great of the industry, but also just a man who should never have been allowed out there in the state he was in. Like, just on a basic human level. And on that cheerful note, let's start the show! It's October 10th, 1999, and we are in Casino Magic, baby, in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. We are welcomed in by our announce team, the aforementioned Dutch Mantel, and this guy sitting beside him. This is Randy Rosenblum, a late replacement for the legendary announcer Gordon Solie, who was booked to do this show, but sadly had to pull out due to health reasons. And, you know, that's unavoidable. These things happen. On with the show. At least this guy, this replacement, Randy Rosenblum, probably knows a thing or two about wrestling, enough to fill in, given that they've chosen him for this role. No, he does not. This is the face of a fish entirely out of water. He hasn't seen water in months. Dutch and Randy run down the card, and I'll reveal most of the matches as and when we get to them throughout this video, but I think it's worth mentioning the two big main attractions on the night. And those two big headline bouts are Jake the Snake Roberts versus Jim Neidhart and Yokozuna versus King Kong Bundy. It doesn't quite end up happening like that, as we'll see. To the ring we go, and I love this ring announcer guy. He treats us to his catchphrase. I mean, I'm guessing it's his catchphrase because he tries to say it in like a Michael Buffer cadence. But it's not quite as catchy as let's get rid, like it's not as good as that in my opinion. This guy's catchphrase is, word for word, tonight somebody's gonna get their ass whooped tonight in here. Absolutely sensational. He says the word tonight twice, of course. I didn't make a mistake there. I read that word for word. He does it like that. And it's brilliant. Anyway, finally, first match of the night. It's a tag team match, and one of the teams is the Samoan SWAT team made up of Samu and the Tonga Kid, aka the Not Rikishi variation. Ah yes, the most thrilling of all the different combinations that could make up the Samoan SWAT team. And they're taking on kind of a horrific Frankenstein's monster babyface tag team mashup, where we've just taken two teams and just squished them together with no explanation. We have Tommy Rogers, one half of the Fantastics, and Marty Jannetty, one half, of course, of the Rockers. Now, the person I immediately feel bad for here is Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics. Like, how do you miss out on that payday? How do they book your tag team partner and put him not with you, but with Marty Jannetty? Because obviously Shawn Michaels is busy losing his smile at this point, I think. But how do you not just book the Fantastics? What's going on? I honestly think, right, fan theory here, the fan is me, I honestly think the promoter wanted to book the Rockers, was told that Shawn Michaels was busy losing his smile, but they'd already promised Marty Jannetty, so they just had to find another long-haired tag team babyface guy. And I think that's what happened. So well done, Tommy, for getting the booking. Justice for Bobby Fulton. Anyway, the first person out of the curtain is this guy, the heel manager of the Samoan SWAT team. He is a man named Paul Adams. I could find very little about him. Let's assume that let's say he's their wise man, if you will. Less Paul Heyman and more Paul, hey man. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that one. Then the Samoan SWAT team arrive. They've already got a manager anyway, so Paul's redundant straight away. They are managed by Seeker. Nice to see him, of course, one half of the Wild Samoans, and Roman Reigns' dad, lest we forget. Paul doesn't care that his tag team already have a manager when he's supposed to be their manager. He's too busy trying to get himself over by squaring up to the referee. I can sense that Paul Adams is going to be a bit of a problem here. In fact, he then gets mic time which I'm not ecstatic about, but let's see what he has to say. Paul immediately gets the name of the town wrong, which isn't a great start, claiming that we are in Biloxi, Mississippi, when we are in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, and I hope that I've pronounced Biloxi right. Are these real places? Now, I don't know if that's a deliberate heel ploy to get heat, like the getting the town's name wrong kind of thing, but it doesn't work because the crowd are largely silent. It feels awkward, like they're aware he's made a mistake, but nobody really wants to correct him yet. Paul rambles a bit, doesn't really get the crowd going, he's trying his best. But here come the babyface team, and they're going to save us from this. They're going to save the day, as any good babyface team should. And you know what? They're looking alright, bit grizzled, but still in really good shape. Big pop from the crowd as well. Maybe this is going to be okay. By the way, Dutch Mantell on commentary just immediately starts talking about Shawn Michaels, just to remind us who we are not watching here. He also name drops Bobby Fulton as well, Tommy's partner, justice for Bobby Fulton, but he gets the name wrong, calls him Jackie Fulton, which is actually his brother. Once again, Bobby Fulton is not on this show and just keeps getting knocked down. He's the real hero of wrestling. We get poses from the heels to start, and then poses from the babyface to start, and then there's just so much stalling. Just wrestle. Just wrestle each other now, please. Stalling is a key recurring theme on this show, I must stress. Finally, the action gets underway properly, and two things become immediately apparent. One, this is being called on the fly. Incredibly so, to an incredibly improvised degree. Feels like a tag match in like a 2K game where all four wrestlers are controlled by four human players and people are just coming in without getting the tag all the time. Tommy Rogers is being controlled by the little brother who doesn't quite yet know how to play a video game, doesn't quite have the motor skills yet. He's just getting in his own partner's way. There's also an early miscommunication as Samu accidentally hits Tonga Kid on the apron and the faces take control with some cutting edge double team babyface offense. Whoa kids, check out this double wrist lock. You can keep your TLC matches and your Mick Foley shenanigans and whatever. This is real high-octane entertainment. Tags are made, and then Tommy Rogers hits a flagrant low blow after telling the referee to look over there. And then the referee does, even though they're the babyface team, they're still cheating and hitting low blows, and I'm getting annoyed. Then the heels do some healing, which I'm fine with because they're the heels and they're meant to. Like stuff like spitting at the crowd, and stuff like that. At this point, I realise I have an issue with Dutch Mantell. Because most reviews of this show that you may have seen, a lot of people like to focus, and I understand why, totally, they like to focus on the hapless commentary of Randy Rosenblum, the last-minute stand-in for Gordon Solie. But that's not really Randy's fault. He's a last-minute stand-in. He's clearly a broadcaster, he can talk, he just doesn't know anything about wrestling. But I have a problem with Dutch, because Dutch is being the heel co-commentator, right? A classic role in wrestling, of course, but I think here that is a bad decision because he's like sticking up for the heels cheating, he's criticizing the faces and all that kind of stuff like you'd expect from a heel commentator. But Randy doesn't know wrestling, so he doesn't know the conventions of wrestling commentary, so I think he just agrees with him. So instead of Gorilla Monsooning it and being like, will you stop, he just doesn't stand up for the baby faces. So you've just got Dutch burying the faces and Randy letting him. This whole show, Dutch is pretending that the heels are the justified ones, and he's just being allowed to do that. He's just throwing out these unchallenged statements, these unchallenged lies. Damn you, Dutch! You're not the hero of wrestling. I've decided that right now. We'll see who it is by the end of this show. I don't think anybody qualifies. Let's scrap that game. A referee distraction leads to a chair shot on the outside, and on commentary, Randy acts like he's never seen a chair shot before, because he hasn't. Tommy gets the hot tag and starts to make a comeback, and just to ram home how improvisational this match is, he hits a big double DDT, despite Jake Roberts being one of the main matches later on in the night. It's like the Trade Federation at the start of the Phantom Menace, just busting out the double lightsabers straight away. That's a good analogy. That's really good. Yay. You know how everybody says the Phantom Menace was dreadful, like a disgrace to the original trilogy and everything? I was a small boy when that came out. And I thought it was sick. Is anyone else the same? I didn't know any better. All I knew is that there was a pod race and there was a 2-on-1 handicap match near the end, which Obi-Wan wins, and it's just amazing. But then you grow up and learn that it's not very good. But actually, can we admit that maybe it was good? Can we admit that now? Also, did anybody else assume that the Phantom Menace referred to Darth Maul? Because look how menacing he is. There's no way that this guy isn't the Phantom Menace, right? But the actual Phantom Menace, I guess, was that Palpatine. I've really fallen behind the times with Star Wars, but I assume that's correct. Because he's the politician, scheming, and charging his electric fingertips. Man, Phantom Menace, wow. You know what else came out in 1999? Heroes of Wrestling, let's get back to it. Big plancha from Jannetty to the outside, but he leaves Tommy alone in the ring, which is a bigger tactical misstep than Qui-Gon Jinn pressuring the Jedi Council into accepting Anakin as a Jedi, and then Samu hits his finisher for the win. The heels are triumphant, and Jannetty, tends to his fallen partner in the ring, much like how Obi-Wan tends to Qui-Gon after they've just fought Darth Maul. I'll stop that now. Let's move on to the next segment. We see footage of Sherri Martel and George the Animal Steele checking into their hotel earlier today. She's his manager for this event. But oh, what's that? Oh, there are some rumours that this relationship might be more than professional. Oh my. They're interviewed backstage because George's match is next, and I'm like 90% sure that Sherri Martel will be turning on him immediately. He's taken on Greg the Hammer Valentine, who's delighted to be here as always. And Greg cuts a promo completely in the wrong direction. He could not be further from working the hard cam there, could he? For all of modern wrestling's bluster about the old pros, they knew how to do all the little things, it's the gaps between the moves and it's all the other... If Greg the Hammer Valentine walked into the Performance Center today, he would never be allowed to graduate to the main roster. No, Greg, you might be a master of psychology and heel work, but you can't do a double somersault, so you're not allowed. Greg gives us actually a bit of background for this match in his promo, saying that his father, Johnny Valentine, feuded with George the Animal Steele for many years, but now he's retired, so Greg's gonna, he's gonna take up the mantle and he's gonna get this win for his dad. Now, I know there's no way that Cage Match, as wonderful a resource as it is, there's no way it could be a complete record of wrestling history, but it's the closest thing we have, and it has one listed match. I'm guessing there were more, but it has one listed match between Johnny Valentine and George the Animal Steele. But it has way more listed matches between Greg Valentine and George the Animal Steele. What I'm getting at here is, in saying that Johnny Valentine feuded with George the Animal Steele, has Greg Valentine mixed up his own father with himself? The bell rings and they lock up, and Greg immediately gets bitten by George the Animal Steele. That's vintage George the Animal Steele. Yum, yum, yum. Now the ref stops the match to demand that George removes his t-shirt, because I guess that's the house rules of Heroes of Wrestling, apparently, and Greg attacks him mid-shirt removal. Nice old school healing there. I like that. Not everything in this show is terrible, just most of it. But all that good work is immediately undone as Sherri Martel does her, how I said I was 90% certain she was going to turn heel on George? She does that way faster than expected here. She betrays him so quick. She's choking him with the referee's back turned. So now we all know that Sherri's turned heel, but George doesn't know that she's turned heel. I guess the logic here is that George can't see her because he's facing the other way, so he'd be unaware of her betrayal. Like a guard in the Hitman games or Metal Gear Solid or something. He's just got a cone of vision, but no logic behind it. Still, I can kind of see it making sense because George is not a wrestling gimmick associated with great intelligence, quite the opposite in fact. However, Sherri is screaming as she does this. It's unmistakable who's betraying you, George. George then makes his comeback, I'm not kidding, by pulling a shiv out of his tights and just jabbing it into Greg's neck. Jesus Christ. And also, I'm worried about George's background now, because I had to rewind to see where he produced that weapon from. He got it so quickly out from his tights. He was like a magician with that sleight of hand. Quick pitch. I just mentioned the Hitman games. Hitman games, but instead of Agent 47, it's George the Animal Steele. There you go. Do with that what you will, gaming industry. George, because he's stupid, then passes this weapon off to Sherri to hide it from the referee, but Sherri's not on your team anymore, George. Get real, man. Get with the times. She, of course, gives it straight to Greg Valentine, who, of course, then uses it to regain control in the match. And yeah, I said regain control there, not end the match instantly. No, this deadly foreign object is just used as a transitional spot. And it takes me a while until I realize, this isn't the finish. But nothing really feels like the meat of the match, the middle of it, because these guys can't really wrestle anymore. So every spot they're doing has an element of smoke and mirrors to it. The actual finish is a referee distraction spot so that Sherri can blast George with a chair, but they overlook one crucial element of such a distraction-based finish. The distraction. Look at the ref. Yeah? I'm really worried that very basic and limited opening tag match may end up being the best match of the night. The heels celebrate, and George finally realizes that he's been betrayed, So he throws Sherry out the ring, and her and Greg head to the back. And it's over. Just kidding, it's not over yet. Then George does his turnbuckle eating shtick to pop the crowd, and Greg comes back into the ring for some reason to stop him from eating the turnbuckles. Like, Greg's a big defender of the turnbuckle. Is he like Gunther? Is he like, the ring is sacred? Like, what's going on here? Anyway, then George chases Greg away. And now it's over. Well done, Greg Valentine, for saving the turnbuckles, I guess. The turnbuckle pads, you know? I know that the turnbuckle's the bit behind it. Right, I mean the bit, I know the parts of a ring. Very defensive there from me. It's almost as if, despite doing this for 10 years now, for a long time, again, it's almost like I thought the turnbuckle was the padded bit and not the bit behind it, the buckle where the ring turns. But no. Some of you out there will have just clicked. That's why it's called a turnbuckle, by the way. Some of you will have only just realised. Time for another interview to hype the next match. Why, it's Julio Fantastico, a man in his 20s on the Heroes of Wrestling, on this nostalgia-based... What's going on? Well, according to Wikipedia, this match was designed to be a bit of an exception on this show. A little bit more of a fast pace, surrounded by all of the older guys. Now, we're actually going to see some work rate here in theory. Julio Fantastico would end up in TNA a few years later on. Look, here he is with Father James Mitchell and some other young whippersnapper who probably never amounted to anything, that guy, actually. Julio comes out here and cuts a promo where he makes some quite astonishing claims, I have to say. He claims to be wrestling's greatest superstar, and that's not the crazy bit, and that he's going to win every single match he ever wrestles again. Oh, so your gimmick is basically Goldberg. Okay, love it. Let's see how that goes. His opponent is Too Cold Scorpio. We all love Too Cold Scorpio. My favourite version of Too Cold Scorpio is WCW champion Too Cold Scorpio. As you can see there, he's got the belt. But that can't be right, because the actual WCW champion at the time was Sting. And as far as I'm aware, Too Cold Scorpio was never WCW champion. This show is like Twin Peaks or something. That was the word something I tried to say there. Or something. Yeah, man. What you doing? Newcastle. Let's check in with the announce team at this time, because at this point it becomes a 3-man booth as Captain Lou Albano joins them before the bell. And the fact that he only started commentating 3 matches in makes me think they definitely realised how much Randy and Dutch were struggling, and they were like, Lou, get out there now. But arguably he doesn't really improve it. You could even say he makes things worse, because there's a lot more talking over each other with a 3-man booth, naturally, of course. And that's only a worthwhile trade-off if what they're saying is worthwhile. But it's just like, you've got cynical guy, naive guy, and now they've been joined by overexcited guy. And together they are the Justice League of terrible commentary. The match begins, and we actually get some wrestling. I'm like, what? What's going on? In fact, compared to what we've seen already, this almost seems like futuristic alien work rate kind of stuff. And immediately on commentary, Lou Albano is compelled to teach Randy that a dropkick is called a dropkick, not a leg drop, as Randy has been calling it so far. The match carries on, and it's not like, well, it's comfortably the best wrestling we've seen on this show so far. Obviously, of course it is. But it's not amazing or anything. It's just pretty decent. But the announce team decide to just completely overemphasize how brilliant it is. I think their strategy is that if they kind of overemphasize how great it is, they'll Jedi mind trick the audience into thinking it's match of the year. There's a few missteps. Like at one point, Julio. Have I called him Julio at any point in this video? Oh, I'm going to be so annoyed if I watch this back and I've called him Julio. This is proven when Julio goes for a plancha, but Scorpio is absolutely not in position. So Julio has to just hang onto the ropes, skin the cat, and then do it again when his opponent is ready. On the outside, Scorpio throws Julio over the crowd barricade, and he just absolutely wipes out this terrified kid in the front row. Lawsuit incoming. Randy says on commentary, there's no give in that floor. Randy, there's no give in that innocent child. Now they brawl deeper into the crowd, and the camera crew cannot keep up, so we get some thrilling action shots like this one and this one. Finally, the action makes its way back into the ring. Low blow, another low blow on this show. So many low blows already. Julio keeps up the heel antics by shoving the referee into the ropes to unbalance Scorpio, and unfortunately, I think I'm right in saying that the referee here takes the bump of the night. That referee was the best worker on this show. Scorpio fights back and hits a few of his signature high-flying moves, including the tumbleweed, it's like a phoenix splash into a leg drop, which always looks very nice. But unfortunately, look how he lands here. He's miles away. Julio is completely safe. Yes, that's the finish of the match. Oh, back at the announce table, Randy's got some breaking news, actually. Apparently Lou Albano has been named commissioner of Heroes of Wrestling going forward. Oh, awesome. And upon hearing this news, Lou is shocked. He's getting emotional. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. This is so great. And I'm shocked as well. Because for this whole show so far, we've been told, it's been rammed down our throats, this is one night only. You've got to see it. One night only, Heroes of Wrestling. It's one time. It's one time. Appointing a commissioner implies there will be more shows going forwards. Somebody's lying here. On a wrestling show? No, surely not. But let me get a little bit meta here. Outside of all that, there won't be any more shows, of course. So this is a useless appointment and a waste of time. I need to cheer up a little bit. Just a few thoughts on the show so far. It's been pretty bad. Like a really lackluster match between George Steele and Greg Valentine, and then two kind of nothing matches either side of it. But you might have noticed, it doesn't quite feel like worst show ever material yet, does it? Don't worry, things are about to go severely downhill. To the back we go again for an interview with King Kong Bundy, and he's going to beat up Yokozuna in the main event, and rah, 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 rah. You know the drill. Time for another match now, and nothing quite says throwback old school nostalgia-themed wrestling show like an old evil foreign heel tag team. So we've got just the men for the job. You know them, I know them, we all love them, or we all love to hate them. Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, and their manager, Nikita Brezhnikov, who riles up the crowd. Unfortunately, the bit goes on way too long to get any sort of heat. It just puts people to sleep. Nikolai sings the Soviet national anthem, even though the Soviet Union dissolved 8 years prior, and the Sheik does his clubs that he does. He does like his club weightlifting demonstration thingy. And that really does backfire, and that really does silence the crowd, because, let's face it, it's kind of underwhelming in 1999. Like, we've seen Mick Foley plummet from the side of a cage through the announce table and then go through the roof of said cage in the same match moments later. What's this? What's that? Their opponents are New Zealand icons, the Bushwhackers, who do get a good reaction, to be fair. Look at them go! The fans are delighted to see those boys. And the fans are delighted because they don't know what's coming next. I flubbed that line, didn't I? Ugh! I do need to cheer up, I really do. The problem is I've now twice said that I need to cheer up. So that means, and I haven't got any sort of payoff written into the script. There's no part where anything happens to cheer me up from this point on. The following contest has been described as one of the worst matches of all time. Volkov and Sheik versus the Bushwhackers. And there's another match later on in the night that's also described as one of the worst matches of all time. And these two matches make up the bulk of Heroes of Wrestling's awful reputation. The heels jump the faces at the bell, and Nikolai lays in some of the most ponderous knees ever, which highlights the key problem in this match, which is that the four wrestlers they're just past it, man. They're old. Yeah, they're too old, they're too broken down. It's a shame. It is a shame. It's probably the main issue with putting on a nostalgia-themed wrestling show in a microcosm represented in this match. Which is, if you're going to put on a show almost exclusively featuring guys past their prime, they're going to be past their prime. The crowd chant USA, USA, and the Sheik threatens to walk out if they continue, and I like to think that he's just annoyed, not at the chants themselves, but at the inaccuracy of the chants, because of course the faces are from New Zealand. What's everybody doing? Turns out the people from Bay St. Louis are not the smartest. I'm really sorry if you're watching from Bay St. Louis. And if you've managed to log on to the internet, you're probably the smartest person in town. Get out of there. The heels dominate for a while with some of the most clearly fake-looking strikes you'll ever see. Like, for example, look at this kick. Oh, it's just a screenshot. I don't know if it does it justice. Look at this kick. Imagine how bad that is, I suppose. That screenshot, for all I know, that could make it look like a kick thrown by Kenta or someone. Nikolai at this stage does a really bad backbreaker. It looks like somebody trying to gently lay a baby into a crib. In fact, it's so gentle that the announce team call it a soft slam. Why would you call it that? Don't highlight how soft the slam is. This is one of the only occasions ever where saying he didn't quite get all of it might have actually been a good thing. Sheik gets the camel clutch locked in, but it's broken up, and then we get the hot tag and the babyface comeback. Yes, it's time to go, but the manager's on the hard cam side of the ring. Get out the way, we can't see anything. I'm not having fun. One of the bushwhackers charges into him and knocks him to the floor, but the camera cuts away at the moment of impact. So we don't even get to see the manager get his comeuppance. Nothing's going right. And then we get a double Irish whip collision spot. Way down they go. It's class. As this bump happens, right, I swear, if you watch Heroes of Wrestling, watch this moment. Watch for after the manager gets knocked off the apron, but we don't see it because of the bad camera work. Then watch for the double Irish whip collision spot, because I swear at the moment of impact, you hear a fan make a noise, kind of like, Nikolai grabs, again, a miscellaneous foreign object, possibly the same one that was used in the George the Animal Steel match, but it's a miscommunication because he accidentally hits his partner with it as the cameras again almost miss it. The director is having a nightmare in this one. So this kind of shaky moment that isn't that clear leads directly to the finish, and the Bushwhackers get the win. And they celebrate into a ringside camera. And yes, we cut to the wrong one. Oh my God. So, do I think that was one of the worst matches ever? Context is everything. On one hand, there are a million bad matches like this littered throughout wrestling history, featuring old broken down wrestlers past their prime, just trying to get one more payday, and who can blame them? I found it extremely sloppy and extremely boring rather than like some complete disaster. So why is it so reviled? Well, partly because it's on Heroes of Wrestling, which is remembered as a historically bad show, and this is one of the weakest matches on it, so of course it's going to take a lot of the criticism. But I also think a big factor is the time in which this took place, because like I said, there are a million matches like this littered throughout wrestling history. But this took place in '99, a time when the business was undergoing rapid change and excitement and adrenaline in its soul, every thought out of control. And this match would have been a bad match in 1959, let alone 1999. So just throwing them out there and expecting them to put on a satisfactory match, I think just shows the extreme ignorance behind the creation of this event. To my horror, the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov almost fight at the bell, but then they make up and it's alright, they're still friends. What's this about? What were they planting the seeds for here? Were they teasing a match between the two of them for a future show? Surely, surely not. We will quite literally never know, so maybe. Next up is Tully Blanchard versus Stan Lane, two guys more known for being heels, so I'm wondering who's going to be the babyface in this one? That question is answered immediately as we cut to a pre-tape of Tully getting out of his limo earlier in the day. He's all smiles, he's shaking hands with the interviewer. That Tully Blanchard, he's always been a ray of sunshine? That question is then further answered as Stan Lane viciously attacks Tully Blanchard mid-interview, and the interviewer goes, "Oh my God, what? Like, this could be a shoot. Is it real? We'll never know. That's the magic of pro wrestling." Then we get another pre-tape from slightly later after Tully has recovered from this ambush. And Tully Blanchard, right, he's going for an Academy Award here. He promos his ass off here. He's doing so well. Like, he is so good. He is such a good promo and he is trying his best here. And it's kind of heartbreaking knowing that he put so much effort into a promo to hype a match on Heroes of Wrestling. But thank you so much for trying, Tully. Tully's all serious, you know. Like he's like, look, I've been retired for a while now. But this attack by Stan Lane, this has stirred something up deep within me. Tully then gets personal. He says that Stan Lane was only ever a champion because of people like Bobby Eaton and Jim Cornette, whereas Tully was one of the Four Horsemen. And the Four Horsemen were a tidal wave that Tully Blanchard helped start. And now he's going to show Stan Lane what it feels like to be hit by a tidal wave. Oh my God. Bars! Come on, Tully! I'm so excited. He's not finished. Tully then says he's going to unleash the anger that he used to feel for people like Dusty Rhodes and that he now feels for people who've sold out and signed big deals with companies like the WWF and WCW. And Tully may be older, but he's still got that fire that made him what he was. Oh. I'm hyped for this match. Let's see if it's good. Stan Lane makes his entrance. He's all cocky. Look at him go. And he cuts a heel promo saying that he's going to give himself a better ring announcement than the ring announcer did. I've never known this, but I wouldn't be surprised if this gimmick by Stan Lane is what ultimately inspired like Mr. Kennedy, for example. And Stan Lane's really good at it as well. It's a good shtick. I think he was a legitimate broadcaster in his life at this point. Stan continues to trash talk. Tully just storms to the ring and Stan Lane immediately runs away and I'm like, get him, Tully. And then I'm like, oh my God, is this actually going to be good? They run through some spots and it does immediately look pretty good. They're clearly two like seasoned pros. I think it might just be in comparison to the previous match though. No, it's good, I swear. We even get a running drop kick to a kneeling opponent from Tully Blanchard. Shibata! Despite being a face here, Tully has not lost all of that heelish grit, seen here as he gets out of a rest hold, and for some reason they then cut to the most bored woman in the history of the world. Why would you highlight her? Anyway, so no, look at her again. Look at her face. She wishes she was anywhere else. Anyway, so they've done it again. They have to be doing this deliberately. Also, this shows me that there's no justice in the world because this match has been built to better than anything else on this show by a mile and the crowd could not care less about it. Oh, but when the Bushwhackers come out, everyone's buzzing. It's pathetic. These people deserve to be at the worst wrestling show in history. Anyway, the match goes on. This one's not even looking at the ring. They spill to the outside and Tully gets a figure 4 leg lock applied on the floor. Oh, stop it. It's beyond a joke at this point. Now, from what I can tell, it is literally a joke. They're doing this on purpose. They're trying to find bored, unimpressed-looking women in the crowd because Stan Lane, part of Stan's heelish gimmick is that he thinks of himself as a ladies' man, and they're showing like, you know, he's full of crap. Look how bored all these women are when he's in the ring. Problem is, you're also showing to us, the viewing public, that your wrestling show is boring everybody. You know, you can show bored fans for a joke in the crowd, but you are still showing bored fans. But I think this match is pretty good so far in quite an old school sort of way, and then it has a finish that completely ruins everything, sadly. Stan hits a back suplex and they do the both men's shoulders down spot kind of thing with only Tully kicking out in time. That's often a difficult finish to pull off. Made worse here by the fact that nobody realizes that that's what's happened. Not the fans, not the announcers, and not even the wrestlers who just keep on wrestling. The ref steps in and raises Tully's hand and Stan storms off. It's a terrible finish to what was a pretty decent match at first, and now it's a complete waste of time. Also, if you're going to give Tully the win, because I would understand if they'd given Stan the win, if they wanted to do further shows, this would absolutely have been a rematch on one of those future shows. But if you're going to give Tully the win, which they did here, give him the win in decisive, like vengeful fashion after that attack. But no, we get like a weird cheap. This is all cheap. To the back again for another interview with King Kong Bundy, this time joined by Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So yeah, both of these heels are supposed to be in separate matches as we've seen. But then given what goes on to happen with Jake Roberts, the two matches kind of end up just getting smushed into one. It makes me think that maybe it was this point in the night when they realized that Jake wasn't going to be able to have a singles match. So they had this 2-man interview to like establish it ahead of time, maybe, I guess. I don't know, but that would make sense. But they don't really say anything of value here. It's quite weird. They're like, let's get some more interview time with Bundy. Oh, Jim's here now. And then they go, yep, here we are. They don't have a plan. They don't have a point to this. They just kind of waffle. You know, Bundy says, oh, Jim, I'll have your back against Jake. And Jim's like, cheers, man. That's it. Next up, we have One Man Gang. Hell yeah, here he is. He shouts his entire promo, and his opponent is, oh, Abdullah the Butcher. What the hell? So is this going to be a classic Abby match with like blood and weapons and grisliness and all that sort of stuff? Because if so, that's very surprising. Because this show has been very inoffensive so far. Not in terms of its quality, it's been very offensive in terms of that. But in terms of its tone, it's been quite deliberately inoffensive. But now we're going to get Abby out there. He'll show the kids real wrestling. They brawl at the bell and One Man Gang attacks Abdullah with his chain, drawing immediate blood. And oh my God, they're doing it this way, are they? This is a real Abdullah the Butcher match. Okay then. This is instantly very different from anything we've seen on the show so far, with Abdullah the Butcher obviously just pouring with blood as he does. He is taking so much punishment from the off, and he is quite patiently waiting for his comeback while being strangled by the chain instead of selling. Okay, interesting creative choice there, Abby. Abdullah the Butcher sells for no man, apparently. Well, why would you if you were as terrifying as Abdullah the Butcher? Despite taking something of a risk by including this on the show, unfortunately, Heroes of Wrestling are not rewarded for this risk because sadly, it's just not very good. Abdullah makes his comeback and then stops to lick some of his own blood for quite a lot of time. Don't do that, brother. That's not very nice. Now he's attacking one-man gang with his signature fork, and now both men are busted open. Sounds exciting in theory when I'm telling it to you now, but it's really clunky. And I get that, like, Abdullah the Butcher matches were always quite rough and ready, but it lacks the oomph. There's no real passion behind it. It's just two older guys kind of just going through the motions of what would be an exciting match, but sadly, in this situation, is not. It's just a payday, but with more blood. Now Abdullah gets up in the corner, looking for the big elbow drop. Oh my God, a guy this size, he's going to hit it. Slow build up once again, raising the tension. I can't wait to see this. What's it going to look like? He leaps. We cut to the crowd where these guys are just like having a laugh about something. Stop. Stop doing that. So yeah, we missed the spot, and then they brawl to the outside, and then it's a double count out. Some big security guys try to break it up, and then they get beaten up too by the wrestlers. And then by this point, it's just a collection of large men kind of just slowly colliding with each other. They brawl to the back, and that's it. A bad match. A bad professional wrestling bout. Time for another pre-tape, and looks like there was a bit of a card game last night at the casino between Captain Lou Albano, Cowboy Bob Orton, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I hope this doesn't escalate or anything. That will be controversial. Lou catches Cowboy Bob cheating, and it leads to a brawl with Snuka. Looks like they're going to have to settle this one in the squared circle. That's how we do things around here at Heroes of Wrestling. We get a backstage interview as well, and Lou's there with Jimmy, and he cuts, I think, the most contradictory promo I've ever heard. Lou says, first of all, I'm the commissioner, I'm unbiased, you know, but this is Jimmy Snuka. He flies like a bee, he's unbelievable, and Cowboy Bob Orton is so downright despicable and dirty. And I'm starting to question how unbiased our noble commissioner truly is. Just to solidify how biased he indeed is, Lou ends the promo by saying, we're gonna get you. Me and him, we're going to get you. Watch out, Snuka. I think he meant Orton, but at the crucial moment, he just got the name wrong. And that's fine. We've all done it. I probably did it a lot in the Greg Valentine-George Steele match because of the amount of times I stopped to take, let me tell you right now. The amount of times I stopped to take thinking, did I say Greg when I meant to say George or vice versa? Like, it was an awful match to record. I am feeling stressed. Anyway, Cowboy Bob gets some mic time as well. Quite a Randy Orton-esque gesture with his hands there, don't you think? So I've written a punchline for that bit. It's in the form of a song. Here we go. He hears voices in his head. He cheats at cards. He's a cowboy. He's Bob Orton. He's Bob Orton. Whoa. He's counting cards. He's cheating cards. He's a cowboy man and he cheats at cards. Bob Orton. He cheats at cards. He was at WrestleMania 1. He's cheating at cards. And he's a cowboy man. Right, enough of that. Anyway, the match is underway before long. And Jimmy actually hits a second rope crossbody. Whoa, hang on. Has he still got it? I don't know. Because then he's supposed to get clothesline to the outside, can't quite make it, and just hangs out there like this for a while. And then a bit later, he takes a big delayed vertical suplex from Bob, which does look decent, to be fair. So well done, Bob. Bob's looking pretty good. Jimmy doesn't bother selling this and just gets up and just stands in the background while Bob acts all cocky and heelish because he's just hit this big suplex. But it loses its effect when the guy, and he's not doing like a Road Warriors no-sell or anything like that. He just doesn't sell it and just gets up. Makes Bob look like an idiot. Like, I would be annoyed if I was Bob. Just when things might be picking up, they delight all the sad old podcasters out there by slowing things right down again. Hell yeah. Orton grabs this arm lock for about 3 months, and somehow it works because the crowd are giving him all sorts of heat for it, thereby proving me wrong and the sad old podcasters right. On this occasion, the crowd is so angry even that there's a very homophobic chant at this point, which of course I will not be repeating here, but it does have me surprised. Not surprised that it happens, sadly. This is 1999, but surprised that the target of this chant is Cowboy Bob. He doesn't have a gimmick that you'd expect to be targeted in such a way. He's not preying upon the masculine insecurities of the crowd. He's not Goldust. He's not Adrian Street. He's Bob Orton. He's a cowboy. Jimmy makes his babyface comeback, and then they run into each other, and then we have a double down. This match has been light on action, I must say. I think even compared to some of the other matches on this show, it feels particularly meandering, which is a damning indictment of this match. If it's meandering compared to what we've already seen, work a bit harder, guys, come on. Again, I don't think this is Bob's fault. I think Bob does all right. They slowly head up top to one of the corners. Orton goes for a superplex, but Albano holds Snooker safely in place from the outside. Oh, an unbiased commissioner, are we, Lou? Bob has been foiled by this, so instead of completing the superplex, he crashes down to the canvas on his own. No, we don't get a good shot of this. Of course we don't. Superfly splash, 1, 2, 3. Jimmy wins, and Randy's dad's been screwed here. Justice for Cowboy Bob Orton, actually. He's the hero of wrestling. Him and Bobby Fulton are the heroes of... You just got to be called Robert to be a hero of wrestling, apparently. Trying to think of a funny Bob. Heroes of wrestling. Can they fix it? Heroes of wrestling. Next up is the infamous Jake the Snake Roberts promo. I also really enjoy... I've never thought about this before, but I enjoy that Bob the Builder's name is Robert. Like Robert the Builder. Yeah, you should have gone by that, Bob. Giving you more of an air of authority. And those machines wouldn't have been mugging you off like Scoop and Dizzy and Muck. Okay, so yeah, it's almost time for the semi-main event, which ultimately ends up just being the main event, of course, because remember, those two big matches were just smushed together. Backstage we go for the now infamous Jake Roberts promo, and as I mentioned earlier, he is clearly in no state to be performing. He is intoxicated. He's slurring his words, he's rambling, he's leaning on the interviewer. It could not be more obvious. But despite being in the state he's in, Jake is clearly trying to weave some kind of theme together here, like a gambling theme because they're in a casino. So like, that's why we get famous lines now like, you want to play 21, I've got 22, don't gamble with me, I'll cheat, all that sort of stuff. Still, and maybe I'm being too kind here, probably, but still there is some semblance of charisma here. Like you can kind of tell deep in there somewhere while watching this that Jake is one of the greatest talkers in wrestling, but here he's clearly just out of his mind. It's very sad to see. And it's not a patch on Tully's promo from earlier, which now the more I think about it, it's not just the best build to a match on this event, it's the best thing on this event. Tully's promo is so good. Anyway, we cut back to the arena for the arrival of Jake's opponent, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who is either trying to be a menacing, intimidating heel, or is just legitimately annoyed about how everything's going down. And who could blame him? Here comes Jake. He's not walking right. He then heads back through the curtain and then re-emerges, but without a shirt this time. He grabs this woman's hands at ringside and makes her, fondle him, I guess. And it's painful, of course, to watch this. But not only that, it's painful to hear the announce team try and gloss over it and pretend it's not happening. The match begins and they immediately stall for time. And I feel bad for Jim Neidhart, man. Look at him. This is the face of a man who knows he has an impossible job to do here. He kind of walks Jake Roberts through a few exchanges, but predictably it's not good. Neidhart escapes from a very sloppy DDT attempt, and then Jake gets Damien the Snake out of the bag and holds it, between his legs, and Jim's just out of there. He's out of the ring. Now, I assume that's part of the original plan, it's the classic thing. Jake gets the snake out of the bag and his opponent flees in terror because there's a huge snake in the ring. But Jim doesn't sell fear at all. He just gets out the ring and looks like, I don't want any part of this. And who can blame him? Here comes King Kong Bundy to back up Jim, like they sowed the seeds for that in that two-man interview segment. And something catches my eye at this point, but I haven't gotten to the bottom of it. But at this point, Bundy says something which I think almost causes Jim to laugh, to break character. No idea what it is, but the vibe is very much, when have you ever been stuck in a bad situation with a friend where you've your flight's been cancelled or whatever, you're going to be stuck, you're in a very tedious, difficult situation, and all you can do is just laugh or you'll cry. That's the vibe I'm getting here. Jim gets back in there and basically wrestles himself for a while until Jake goes for the DDT, so Bundy gets on the apron and distracts him, allowing Jim to attack from behind, and Jake takes the world's slowest bump, staggering down to the canvas very untidily. Jake's kind of done from this point onwards, really. They resort to Neidhart holding him in a front headlock while Bundy stomps at him. No DQ called by the ref for some reason. And that is stupid, of course it is, but it pales in comparison to the rest of the stupidity on show. Now here comes Yokozuna, and yes, the main event was going to be Yokozuna versus King Kong Bundy, but again, we've merged the two matches together, and now, without any sort of announcement or explanation, the main event is a tag match. Not that anybody tells Randy Rosenblum, our intrepid play-by-play commentator, because upon Yokozuna arriving, he says, uh-oh, I hope it's not going to be 3-on-1 now. Well, no, Randy, because Yokozuna's Bundy's opponent. Why would he then turn heel and join the other two in beating down Jake? Actually, if Bischoff and Russo were in charge, that is exactly what would have happened. Jake rolls out of there while Yokozuna brawls with the heels. We get more bad live direction as they cut to a shot of Jake Roberts trying to get his breath back, with the match going on in the background. No, they sent Bundy and Yokozuna out there to distract from Jake Roberts and give him a chance to get himself together. Why are we focusing on Jake Roberts now? I'm getting too annoyed again. Yokozuna forces a miscommunication between the heels, they bail to the outside, and then they have a conversation with this guy in a white shirt. I have no idea who he is. They don't tell us. They don't really explain it on commentary. I think maybe one of them goes like, who's that guy? But they don't give any information. He's clearly in some position of authority because we get a nice close-up of him literally relaying instructions to Jim Neidhart. Don't show us that part, Heroes of Wrestling. That's the part that you hide. That's the point of wrestling. I've knocked Raphael over quite a lot of times in this video. I think he is in some sort of position of authority, by the way, because this guy is clearly stressed. That is a man who knows that he has just had a hand in Heroes of Wrestling, the show. Anyway, Jake has somehow made his way back into the ring. Probably not ideal. So Jim improvises, grabs him, drags him over, and just starts biting him. Because that's a spot where Jake doesn't really have to do anything. Honestly, silver lining in this match, if there is one, is that I've been quite impressed by Jim Neidhart and his ability to improvise and try desperately to hold everything together. Jim then takes Jake down with a few chair shots to the head. Not a great idea probably, but at least he doesn't seem to be really laying them in. And now Jake's down again, and we can hopefully now take our attention away from him. Oh wait, no we can't, because now that guy is working him over. Who is this guy? At this point, Dutch Mantel on commentary says, there he is again, the man with no name. Give us something to work with here. At this point, I had to pause the show and I got annoyed. So I did some research, and on the wonderful OSW Reviews episode on Heroes of Wrestling, they explained that his name is Michael Henry, a right-hand man of the show's booker, a guy named Michael Lombardi, a New York-based promoter. So neither of them are the guy bankrolling the show, but they probably do feel worried at this point. So yeah, Michael Henry apparently. Now at this point, some kids in the crowd, because this does appear to be an all-ages show, start chanting Uncle Fester at Michael Henry, which does pop me because he does look a little bit like Uncle Fester. But it doesn't help make sense of anything going on, does it? Just kind of adds to this air of absurdity. Bundy covers Jake. 1-2, Jake kicks out, and you can see Bundy looking at the ref like, oh, come on, man. So now Jim Neidhart tags in, and now he starts working over Jake again. At this point, it dawns on me, why is Jake Roberts, the legal man on the babyface team, taking all of the moves? Why are we doing this? Get him out of that ring. Jake makes his comeback somehow with, you guessed it, an unpunished low blow right in front of the referee. And finally, Yokozuna gets the hot tag. Yokozuna works over Jim in the corner while Bundy hits a big splash on Jake and covers him. Jake just tagged out, remember, he's no longer the legal man, but honestly, who cares at this point? And finally, 1, 2, 3, that's the end of the match. Bundy pins him. I've never quite seen a match end before with the hot tag resulting in the finish because the guy who just tagged out gets pinned straight away, but whatever, it's fine. Oh, you were expecting a finish with any kind of sense of resolution or narrative satisfaction? No. I'm amazed this even went ahead. I'm amazed that Jake took part in the bulk of the match. I'm amazed at all of this, really. But anyway, the heels leave, and I know what you're thinking. Oh my word, thank God it's at least over. Not quite. No, of course, the heels won the main event, but you've got to send the crowd home happy. Honestly, at Heroes of Wrestling, they could have started handing out free cars like on Oprah Winfrey, and I think the crowd still would have gone home with mixed feelings. Yokozuna grabs hold of that guy, Michael, and leads the crowd in a chant of DDT, DDT, and then Yokozuna realizes, oh, Jake's finished. He can't hit a DDT on this guy. I'll do a Samoan drop instead. And that's how the show ends, with a Samoan drop from Yokozuna. Well done, Yokozuna. Well done, Heroes of Wrestling. Jake drapes Damien, the Snake, over Michael's prone body, and without any sort of announcer farewell, no kind of sign-off or explanation, the audio just cuts out, and then the show ends. Fitting, in a way. So, I mean, hyperbole is a big problem in wrestling online. Like, everybody's very quick to brand something, you know, the greatest match ever, they're the worst wrestler ever, this is the biggest twist ever, you know, the worst show ever. In this instance, I think it's kind of justified, and this has a good claim to be the worst wrestling show of all time, living up to its reputation that it's gained since, I suppose. The bit I find weird about the show's reputation, actually, is the Bushwhackers versus Sheik and Nikolai, which is remembered as, like, particularly bad, but I honestly think it's quite comparable to most of the other matches on the show, which are all similarly terrible, with the exception of the main event, which is, like, even worse. And which, of course, is also remembered rightly as a disgraceful incident in wrestling history. Even the match I was enjoying the most, Tully Blanchard versus Stan Lane, had a confusing, poorly conceived finish. We are not allowed to enjoy anything in Heroes of Wrestling, it turns out. If there's one thing Heroes of Wrestling has done for me, it's given me a weird appreciation for latter-day WCW, a lot of which I have had the pleasure of covering on this channel. Yes, the dying days of WCW were a confusing mess a lot of the time, and yes, a lot of it was some of the most confusing, nonsensical stuff I've ever seen, but at least, for the most part, the wrestlers were actually able to wrestle. And contrary to what that dickhead Max Landis once said, sometimes wrestling is wrestling. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack the Jobber. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And keep supporting the channel, man. Thank you very much. I'll see you very soon.